They whispered when I entered the room, laughed when I opened my laptop. One girl even nudged her friend and said, "This is gonna be good." They didn't mean it in a kind way. They thought I was wasting my time, that my quiet hours in the corner of the lab were a joke, that a girl like me, awkward, anxious, invisible, had no business standing on a stage with real tech kids. They told everyone I gave up when I stopped joining group projects. They rewrote my story before I had a chance to live it. But failure? It wasn't failure. It was something bigger, just not visible yet. They never expected the girl they ignored would be called to the podium. My name is Alyssa Carter, I'm 17, and I live in Portland, Oregon. And this is the story they never saw coming. Ever since I was little, everyone thought they had my life figured out before I even had the chance to decide. "You'll be a doctor like your mom," they'd say at family gatherings. "She's so smart, so calm, perfect for medicine." It was like my entire personality was being drawn from someone else's resume. And for a long time, I believed them. I played the role, took the advanced science courses, sat in the front row, smiled when my mom said, "She's our future surgeon." I even learned how to pretend I liked it. I'd stare into biology textbooks until my eyes hurt. I'd rehearse lab safety rules like they were sacred scripts. But inside, I was suffocating. Because while they were dreaming of white coats for me, I was dreaming in circuits, in ideas, in problems I wanted to solve, not patients I wanted to diagnose. I remember the first time I held a soldering iron in robotics club. It wasn't even supposed to be mine. I was just the note taker. But the guy next to me didn't show up, so the coach handed it to me with a shrug and said, "Here, try it." That little spark? It didn't just melt metal, it ignited something in me. But the minute I told my parents I was thinking of switching focus to engineering, it was like I confessed to a crime. My mom blinked like she hadn't heard me right. "You mean like mechanical stuff?" she asked. "It's not just mechanical," I said carefully. "There's coding, problem solving, We just didn't raise you for trade work," my dad cut in. Trade work. Like I was throwing away my intellect. They weren't angry. That would have been easier. They were disappointed in that quiet, painful way that makes you feel invisible. And then came senior year. College applications. Recommendation letters. I told them I wanted to enter the statewide innovation challenge. It was a big deal. Teams from all over Oregon. Real judges. College scouts. Funding. My mom looked down at her coffee. "Are you doing it with someone?" "No, it's a solo submission." A pause. Then, "She's just taking a break," she told my aunt later. "She'll come back around." We stopped talking about it after that. At school, things weren't better. I wasn't popular, but I used to be respected, mostly because I kept quiet and didn't mess things up. But once I started working on my project in the makerspace after hours, word got around. Some of the kids in AP Physics started making jokes. "Carter's building a rocket to escape her GPA. Hope your little wires don't electrocute you. Look at her trying to be Elon." They never said it to my face. They didn't have to. Laughter has a way of sticking to the walls. Mr. Dalton, my computer science teacher, was one of the only people who didn't treat me like a lost cause. He let me stay after school and even helped troubleshoot my prototype's power issue. One afternoon, while I was knee-deep in tangled breadboards, he said, "You know, Alyssa, the most important things ever built started with people laughing at the plans." I smiled. "So, I'm on track then?" He chuckled. "More than you know." But even that couldn't protect me from the silence at home. Dinner conversations narrowed. My achievements didn't count unless they aligned with their definition of success. It felt like I'd stepped off a stage, and the spotlight never followed. I submitted my project a week before the deadline. Didn't tell anyone except Mr. Dalton. I'd built a compact assistive device, a voice-controlled glove interface for people with limited mobility. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. And it mattered. No one noticed. No one asked. The project file sat in a USB in my backpack, like a secret only I believed in. After I submitted my project, something in me shifted. Not dramatically. Not like fireworks or a revelation. More like a quiet inhale after being underwater too long. I didn't expect to win. I didn't expect anything, really. I just wanted to know, deep in my own chest, that I had tried. So I kept working, not because someone told me to, not because there was a grade or a reward waiting, but because I wanted to make the device better. In the quiet corners of the library and behind the locked door of the school's neglected robotics lab, I rebuilt. Took everything apart. Started from scratch. Each time I powered it on, and it failed, I felt less defeated than before. Failure stopped feeling like an end. It became part of the language. A dialect only builders understand. That's when Ms. Santiago noticed me. She was our special education coordinator, someone I'd seen around but never really interacted with. She came into the lab one afternoon, saw my device sitting on the bench, and asked, "What's this?" I told her, nervously. Her eyes widened. "Do you think it would help someone like Maria?" she asked. I didn't know who Maria was, but I said, "Maybe." That same week, I found myself in a small resource room across the hall from the main office, watching a girl with cerebral palsy smile at my glitchy prototype. Maria was 16. Bright. Funny. Loved music. She struggled with coordination, but her mind was quicker than anyone gave her credit for. The first time I strapped the glove to her hand, she looked at me and said, "What if it breaks?" "It might," I admitted. She laughed. "Good. I like breaking stuff." Her joy, the curiosity, the way her eyes lit up when the glove responded to her voice, it did something to me. "This machine hates me," she muttered after it froze mid-command. "It's temperamental," I replied. "Like me." She grinned. "That's why we get along." Each visit, I tweaked something. Each bug she uncovered became a challenge I wanted to solve. Eventually, Maria used the glove to control a music player. We played her favorite playlist, 90s pop and Taylor Swift. The room filled with music, and she sat there beaming like she had just been handed the moon. "You brought my baby into my living room," her mom said through tears. I blinked. What? Music. Her songs. We haven't heard them in our house in weeks because I've been so tired. You brought her back to herself. That night, I sat on my bedroom floor staring at the wall. Not crying. Not even smiling. Just still. It didn't make headlines. No college scout knocked on my door. My parents didn't know. But it mattered. The glove started to feel less like a project and more like a bridge. A translator between isolation and expression. And while the judges were weeks away from announcing anything, I had already found something bigger than awards. Purpose. I didn't tell anyone at school about Maria. Didn't post about it. Didn't share it on the class Discord where everyone posted their cool progress. I was still invisible. Still the quiet girl in oversized hoodies, eating lunch under the stairwell. But this time, I wasn't shrinking. I was growing quietly. Rooting. Spring semester moved fast. Most seniors were busy finalizing college plans, chasing prom dates, and counting down the days to graduation. Me? I was still in the lab, buried in wires, debugging version 4.3 of my glove. The project had evolved far beyond my initial submission. Thanks to Maria's feedback, I'd redesigned the input module completely. I swapped the original gesture sensors for a more reliable voice activation system and even added a delay buffer to prevent misfires from ambient noise. It was real now, functional, efficient, intuitive. And even though it still looked like something built in a high school basement, it worked. By mid-April, I'd partnered with Ms. Santiago to test the device with 3 other students in the district. One of them, Jeremiah, used it to operate a digital artboard. His mom sent me a drawing he made. It was a robot holding a sunflower. She captioned it, "He says the robot is you." That was the moment I started tracking the data. Quantifiable success. 4 student users. 3 school trials. 87% command recognition accuracy. 2 requests from other special ed coordinators to test the prototype. 1 potential feature article from the district newsletter. I had documentation, testimonials, even a basic website Mr. Dalton helped me design. "Looks like we're onboarding more users than some actual startups," he joked. I smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. Let's hope we don't crash the site. The metrics were solid. The feedback was better. But at home, it was like I was still just a kid with a hobby. One night, during dinner, my dad asked my older brother Marcus about his new accounting internship. Big firm?
Yep.
Starting rates good too. Mom beamed. See, Alyssa, now that's something you can build a future on. I opened my mouth to say I'd been invited to demo my project at the State Assistive Tech Symposium, then closed it. Because what's the point of sharing when no one's really listening? Later that week, I overheard Mom on the phone with my aunt. She's still doing that tech thing. It's sweet. Keeps her occupied.
Sweet.
Like a hobby. Like finger painting. I wanted to scream. Instead, I went back to the lab. Mr. Dalton helped me prep for the symposium. We polished the demo. Rehearsed the pitch. Remember, he said, they're not just looking for flash. They're looking for meaning. And yours is overflowing with it. The lab was starting to feel like home. The quiet hum of equipment. The whiteboard covered in messy notes. The faded motivational poster on the back wall that said, dream it. Build it. Fix it. At school, no one really knew what I was doing. Not really. A few classmates followed me on Instagram, but since I barely posted, I wasn't visible. Someone from my chemistry class, Lauren, saw my gloves on my desk one afternoon and said, "You still working on your Iron Man thing?" I nodded. She smirked. Teaching old folks to click buttons? Real noble work. Then walked off before I could respond. Another time, someone added me to a group chat ironically called ST- Queens just to laugh at a video of my prototype short-circuiting during testing. They thought it was hilarious. Still glitching, huh? She's always been the free spirit. It's giving main character delusion. I laughed too. Pretended it didn't sting. But inside I was tired. Tired of being misunderstood. Tired of pretending like I wasn't doing something important. Still, I didn't fight it. Didn't clap back. Didn't post a long monologue defending myself. I just kept building. Because every time Maria sent me a video of her using the glove to turn off her bedroom lights, every time Jeremiah emailed me a new sketch drawn with his custom interface, I remembered why I started. Recognition didn't come from followers. It came from impact. Even if no one clapped when I walked into a room, I knew my work was echoing in places they couldn't see. And that was enough. The day of the State Innovation Symposium arrived with all the tension of a final exam, and a thunderstorm rolled into one. It was held at the Oregon Tech Center in Salem, a glass and steel building that looked like it had been designed by a spaceship architect. Inside, everything buzzed. Students setting up booths. Judges with clipboards and sharp eyes. Tech reporters gliding past with cameras. And me, wearing my only blazer, gripping a backpack full of cables, and trying not to sweat through my shirt. I was assigned booth 17, wedged between a smart traffic management app and a biodegradable drone prototype. Both team projects, both backed by high schools with million-dollar STEM labs. And me, just Alyssa. Solo. I set up the demo, with shaking hands. Plugged in the interface. Double-checked the battery pack. Beside me, the drone kids were already being interviewed. Someone even brought a gimbal. I swallowed my nerves. This wasn't about flash. It was about function. At 10:12 a.m., the first judge stopped by. She asked smart questions. Probed the logic. Tested the glove herself. She didn't smile, but she didn't scoff either. By noon, I'd done 4 full demos. Maria had recorded a short testimonial video for me, and every time someone watched it, their expression softened. Still no applause. No crowd.
No spotlight.
Until around 2:30 p.m. A woman stopped at my booth. She wasn't wearing a judge badge, just a navy blouse and jeans, holding a black notebook. She studied the glove closely, then looked at me. "This is yours." I nodded. "All of it?" "Yes." She picked it up, gently. Turned it over. Her lips parted slightly, like something had just clicked. Then she said, quietly, "My nephew uses this." My heart skipped. "Wait, really?" "I'm almost sure," she said. "His fiancée works at a middle school in Gresham. Special education." She told me about a glove that lets him control devices using his voice. I blinked. Maria's school. I nodded. That sounds like mine. She stared at me for a long second, then pulled out her phone and opened a video. It was him. A boy in a motorized wheelchair, using a familiar-looking glove to pause a video on a laptop. I smiled. That's definitely mine. She laughed in disbelief. You're kidding. Nope. I thought this was from some startup. Nope, I said again. Just me. She looked around, as if trying to process that she had stumbled into something bigger than a science fair. Then she said something I will never forget. Do you even realize how many people you're going to help? I didn't. Not really. Until she said it out loud. She turned to someone behind her and waved them over. A tall man in a black polo with an event badge. She whispered to him, then pointed at me. Say that again, he asked. So I explained. The glove. The goal. The journey. He listened intently. That's incredible, he said. Then looked at the woman. This is the one. I didn't know what that meant.
Not yet.
But an hour later, as all the participants were herded into the auditorium for the awards ceremony, I started to feel a current in the air. Names were announced. Honorable mentions. Finalists. Each time a name was called, the room erupted with polite applause. Then they got to the Innovation for Impact category, one of the biggest awards. The host cleared her throat and said, "This year's winner is a solo project, developed entirely by a high school student. A piece of assistive technology already in use by students in our state." I sat up straighter. She doesn't have a company or a team, just an idea and a whole lot of perseverance. I forgot how to breathe. She's from Portland. Her name is Alyssa Carter. The auditorium exploded in applause. I just sat there, stunned. Someone nudged me. Go. I stood, legs numb, and walked to the stage like I was floating outside of my own body. The lights were blinding. The mic was too close. And my name had just been said in a room full of people who'd never even looked at me twice. The host handed me a plaque. The woman from earlier stood nearby, giving me a soft smile. You did this, she mouthed. The crowd stood up. A standing ovation. I hadn't asked for this. Hadn't campaigned. Hadn't posted about it. I'd just built it. Quietly. Consistently. And now the truth had walked in on its own. Uninvited. Undeniable. Unstoppable. Not because I demanded attention, but because the truth walked in by itself and refused to stay quiet. The science fair day arrived with a sky that couldn't decide whether to rain or shine. The school gym had been transformed, rows of trifold boards, wearing gadgets, LED lights blinking like hopeful little stars. The air smelled like fresh printouts and nervous energy. I rolled in my project, compact, polished, and working better than it ever had. The wearable glove, now housed in a sleeker shell, responded seamlessly to voice commands. It wasn't perfect, but it was real.
Alive.
It had helped someone. I placed it gently on the presentation table, smoothed down the info sheet, and stood back, watching the judges move from one display to another like quiet storms. I could feel the stares again. There they were, Zara and Chloe, gathered near their glitter-covered board on biodegradable makeup. They weren't laughing out loud this time, but I saw it in their eyes. One of them nudged the other when a judge approached my table, and I froze. For a second, all the memories of the snickers, the side eyes, the snide comments, they rushed in like cold water. But then I heard Maria's voice in my head. You built something that listens when people can't. So I stood tall. The judge, Dr. Lisa Brennan, a robotics engineer from Georgia Tech, examined the glove with a kind of reverence. She read the diagram, studied the demo video on the screen beside it. Then she turned to me. You built this yourself? I nodded. For whom? I swallowed. People like Maria. People who want to be heard without shouting. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she smiled. Do you mind showing me how it works? My fingers shook as I slipped the glove on.
Play music, I said.
A soft piano melody floated out of the speaker. Dr. Brennan's eyebrows lifted. She leaned closer. Pause. The music stopped. Volume up. It obeyed. Did you program the command structure yourself? She asked.
I nodded again.
Optimized for minimal latency, using embedded microcontroller logic and offline speech recognition. So it doesn't rely on Wi-Fi or mobile data. Her eyes sparkled. You even considered accessibility in low-resource settings? Yes, I replied quietly. She looked at me for a long time, then placed a small gold sticker on the corner of my board. That's our marker, she explained. You're in the final round. I blinked. I am. Yes, she said, with a warm smile. And, honestly, even if you weren't, this is the kind of work that matters. I thanked her, voice shaking. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Presentations. Questions. More judges. People actually stopped at my booth. They asked questions. Not just the judges, students, parents, even faculty. Zara passed by once, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. But I didn't flinch this time. I didn't need her approval. That night, as the crowd gathered in the auditorium for the awards, my heart thudded like a bass drum. I sat near the back, hoodie pulled up, trying to breathe through the storm in my chest. Principal Harris stepped onto the stage with a microphone. This year's first-place project didn't just demonstrate scientific skill, it demonstrated heart. It took real-world problems and tackled them in a way that reminds us why innovation matters. This year's winner is... I held my breath. Ava Morgan, for Project Hear Me. I didn't move. For a full 3 seconds, I honestly thought I'd imagined it. Then someone nudged me. Ms. Santiago. Go, she whispered, tears in her eyes. I stood.
Walked.
Each step to that stage felt like breaking through chains I didn't even know I was wearing. The applause was loud, but I only heard one voice in my head. Maria's. You made the world listen. I took the award with trembling hands. They handed me the microphone, expecting a speech. I cleared my throat. I built this because someone believed in me when no one else did, and I hope I can be that someone for someone else. The room went quiet. Then louder applause. As I walked off stage, I spotted Zara. She wasn't smiling. And maybe that used to matter. But not anymore. I didn't build this to prove her wrong. I built this to prove to myself that I was never broken. The final round of judging took place in front of a packed auditorium. Bright lights, cameras, and an energy in the air that made it hard to breathe. I stood behind my table, project setup freshly cleaned, nameplate perfectly aligned. Alyssa Carter, Project 47B. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the pressure of it all. Months of isolation, silence, and whispered mockery were about to face their reckoning. When the judges called my name to come up for questioning, I caught Harper's eye from across the aisle. Her smirk was gone, replaced by something far more unfamiliar: confusion. Maybe even fear. Judge number 1, a robotics expert from MIT, leaned forward. Miss Carter, can you explain the innovation behind your sensor integration? Yes, I replied, clear and calm. Traditional models react after movement. Mine anticipates it. By analyzing micropatterns in vibrations and proximity, the prototype detects intent. They looked at each other. One of them actually raised their eyebrows. Impressive, Judge number 2 said. What inspired this? I paused, walking alone at night, and realizing that maybe safety should be proactive, not reactive. A moment of silence. Then the judges nodded. The crowd started murmuring again, but this time, it didn't sound like laughter. By the time all presentations ended, I had no idea what to expect. There were 100 amazing projects, but when the head judge returned with the final decision, my breath caught in my throat. In first place, he said slowly, his eyes scanning the crowd, for outstanding innovation, application, and execution, Alyssa Carter, Project 47B. The auditorium erupted. And yet, everything else became quiet. I couldn't hear Harper. I couldn't hear the gasps or the girl behind me whispering, "Wait, her." I just walked to the stage, my heart thudding like a drum in my chest, and accepted the award with tears in my eyes. Not for revenge, not for applause, But for every moment, I thought I wasn't enough. The head judge shook my hand and leaned in. Don't let anyone dim this fire, Alyssa. You're going far. When I turned to face the crowd with my medal, I saw my classmates in stunned silence. No one laughed now, not even a smirk. Harper couldn't meet my eyes. And maybe that was the best part of all. Because for once, the quiet girl wasn't invisible. She was undeniable. Looking back now, I realized that the laughter, the dismissals, and the judgment weren't really about me. They were about how uncomfortable people get when someone dares to step beyond the box they've already placed them in. They laughed because they didn't expect much from me. I was the quiet girl, the overlooked one, the type you don't bet on. And that made me invisible until I wasn't. Winning first place didn't just prove them wrong. It proved me right. All the hours of work, all the silent nights I spent second-guessing myself, all the times I almost quit, it was all worth it. Not for the trophy, but for the truth. That belief in yourself matters more than anyone else's opinion. If I could say one thing to the girl I used to be, sitting alone in the library, too afraid to ask questions or speak up, I'd tell her this. They may not believe in you now, but one day they'll have no choice but to see you.
So keep building.
Keep dreaming. And never, ever let the noise drown out your own voice. Because sometimes, the quiet ones aren't just watching. They're preparing. And when their moment comes, it's loud enough to silence a room.